Good afternoon. We're going to watch a couple videos from James Freeman, and we're going to see where he and I might disagree. So without any further ado, let's go. This is, we know you aren't the suspect, but we want to search anyway. So we're going to see if the cops know that these people aren't the suspect, but if, obviously they're cops, so they definitely want to search anyway.
So for right now, then, I guess the Jeep's not going anywhere.
The Jeep's not going anywhere?
Yep, just for right now.
So was she detained?
No.
Okay, then we can go anywhere we want.
But right now...
What do you mean?
No.
So there's a difference between the Jeep and the people, just in case you're wondering. The Jeep is like a crime scene. The people are suspects. There's a difference between a crime scene and a suspect. If the police think that the Jeep is a crime scene, or whatever it is, I guess it's not technically a Jeep, but if the police think it's a crime scene, then they are going to treat it as a crime scene.
Please. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Put your handcuffs.
You're going to physically assault me for touching my vehicle.
I'm going to detain you. Wait. For interfering with the investigation.
What's up, everybody? It's James Freeman. Today's video comes to us out of Billings, Montana from a channel on YouTube called FLS Family. In this video, some teens are stopped and questioned about a shooting that happened on the other side of town because allegedly their vehicle matches the description of the shooters. The teens choose to answer questions from the police officers about where they've been and what they've been doing in order to
Never answer questions from the police.
help out with the investigation. The Billings police officers determined that the teens were not involved in the shooting.
The Billings police, according to James Freeman, determined that the teens were not involved in the shooting. Now, even James will admit later on that he's wrong in that statement. They never say that we've determined you're not involved. They say we've determined that there's a low likelihood that you're involved. Like we're 95% sure that you didn't do it or something along those lines.
But for some reason, they still want to search their vehicle. When the teen's father and owner of the vehicle refuses to allow them to search, they start resorting to bullying tactics, even though they...
What would happen? I'm just curious. What would happen if you were going to determine whether or not, something happened? Like let's say your kid may have taken a poisonous substance. And it's your child, so you're concerned about your child, right? And your child is in their terrible twos, and they like to say no, and they like to be obstinate and ornery. And you look around, and it looks like maybe the child just spilled the poisonous substance. And you're 95% sure that the child didn't ingest the poisonous substance. What do you do then? Do you press further forward to rule out that last 5%? Or do you just say, you know what, odds are in my favor. I'm just going to gamble my child's life that, there's a 5% chance that my child didn't take the poison. Or only a 5% chance that my child took the poison. Which would you do? So what the police are saying is that there's still a chance that these people are suspect or potentially have done something. And there's still a chance that this vehicle was involved in the shooting. And they want to rule it out. Now, I understand that. Now, I'm not defending the police here. I'm just saying that I understand that. And James should understand that. But he's going down a propaganda path. I'm not a fan of the police myself, but I mean,
state that based upon their investigation, they no longer have reason to believe that the vehicle was involved in a shooting. They tell them...
They don't state that they have no reason to believe that the vehicle was involved in the shooting. They state that the vehicle matches the description of the vehicle that was seen leaving the shooting, which means that they have some reason to believe it's involved in the shooting. That's why they want to search it.
That they're holding the vehicle there until they can obtain a warrant to search it. The cops state that even though nobody is being detained for a crime, if anyone attempts to get into the vehicle to leave, they will be arrested. It should also be noted that the vehicle...
Well, I mean, that'd be interfering with the investigation, tampering with evidence, whatever it is. I mean, the police do have the right to attempt to get a warrant. Now, most people think that it's going to be a long and involved process to get a warrant. My understanding is that most places will have a judge that they have like a day judge and a night judge or something like that, who's available to give warrants. And the cops will call in to the sergeant or somebody like that who will type up what the cops say, and they'll send it to the judge, and then the judge will either grant the warrant or not based on that statement. And maybe it's different. Maybe these police officers talk directly to the judge or whatever, but it's not a long process. It's usually resolved in minutes, not hours.
The vehicle that was described leaving the scene of a shooting was a black Jeep. The vehicle that they're claiming to seize here is a black Dodge Nitro.
I would love to see if he has any evidence of the description of the vehicle that was seen leaving the scene beyond what these cops say in here, because the cops say both ways. So I just wonder if that statement that he's saying is based on some sort of evidence that we don't have access to.
The vehicle that the Billings police are attempting to seize here is not even the same make or model as the vehicle described in the shooting. They're just attempting to seize every single black SUV in Billings, Montana.
That is a weird statement. The police, because they attempted to seize this one vehicle, at least for a short, they actually did seize it for a short period of time while they attempted to get a warrant. Based on that, he says they're trying to seize every black SUV in Billings, Montana. I mean, do we really think that's the case? I mean, James, you sound a little bit like a Karen here. Like, you sound a bit hyperbolic, buddy. Maybe tone it down a tad. I do like how this guy, the cameraman's pretty calm.
It doesn't matter, the fucking guns on my house and shit. This guy, he had a gun.
How's it going, man? Yes, sir.
Oh, hey, nice to meet you, man. Hey, so I don't know if these ladies explained to you what's going on, but basically there was a shooting, okay? And one of the suspect vehicles that was listed as like leaving the area, possibly a black shooting truck.
Okay.
Actually, it was reported as a black Jeep, but the officers go back and forth on exactly what the description of the vehicle was.
Yeah, so like, how do you know it was a black Jeep? And apparently this vehicle looks similar enough, same rims and everything, that maybe it could be. So, who knows, right? Who knows exactly what all descriptions the police had and were working with.
That's why we're here, right?
With rims or just
yeah,
black
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no shit with rims too. So there happened to be a bike officer who's
Yeah, no shit, with rims too.
driving by and seen, obviously these two leaving the area, and that basically that's where we're at. We've already talked about with everyone out of this residence, and I think everything is. We have no reason right now to expect or believe that they're involved, right?
Right there, the officer admits that following their investigation, they no longer have any reason to believe that anyone here was involved in a crime. So based on their own verbal admissions, they don't.
So saying that we have no reason to believe that anybody was involved in a crime. Number one, let's just get this elephant out of the room. Cops lie. Cops lie. They do lie. They can lie. They will lie. James Freeman knows cops lie. He accepts what they say is the truth when it benefits him, but he refuses to accept it as truth when it goes against his narrative, which is just weird to me. I mean, cops lie. Always operate from the assumption that Earl David Warden is lying, and always operate from the assumption that a cop is lying. Those are two fundamental truths of the universe. And if you ever find either one of them telling the truth, that is the exception, not the rule.
They don't even have reasonable suspicion to detain anyone here, let alone probable cause to obtain a warrant to search.
But
They probably have a reasonable suspicion. They probably do. Vehicle matching the description, that should give them enough for a short detention. They've already let the people go, apparently. The people are no longer detained. They just have the vehicle seized while they try to get a warrant.
with your permission, at least, the vehicle's registered to you.
Yeah.
Just to cross our T's and dot the I's and just make sure everything's safe. We're going to ask you if maybe we can ask for consent just to search the Jeep.
Never, this fella does it right. You never talk to the police, and you never say it's okay for the police to search anything. Never let the police search anything. Never consent to them patting you down. If they say anything that sounds like we just want to or can we, say no. Say no. Never consent to a search. Never answer questions.
No.
No, not gonna happen. Okay. Because
You got warrant,
it's just
fine.
cleared out, then why, she's cleared out, then why do you need to search the vehicle? Just to be sure. Yeah. Just, you already ruled out the. No,
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's just not gonna happen, so no big deal. It's just-
Hear the cops say 95%.
That would just help us to get there.
So this officer admits that they are 95% sure that they've got the wrong people in the wrong vehicle here. Do you think any judge is going to issue a warrant to search a vehicle if you admit to him that you're 95% sure you've got the wrong car, but you want
James, again, thinks that the police are going to say the same thing to the judge that they say to these people. The police don't say the same thing to the judge that they say to the people. When you're trying to get something out of a suspect on the street, you're going to lie to that suspect and say, no, you're not a suspect. No, it's fine. Whether they are or are not a suspect, the cop's going to want to disarm you. He's going to want, no, you're not a suspect. I'm on your side. I just want to clear you. And they don't want to clear you. They want to incriminate you. And when the cop goes and talks to the judge, if the cop talks to the judge, if it's not somebody else giving a statement to the judge, whoever is going to give that statement to the judge is going to say all the things to the judge that tend to incriminate you, not all the things that tend to exonerate you. So, James, you're all backwards, buddy.
to search it anyways because it'll make you feel good?
Yeah, well, I'm
And
sure.
here, I mean, we're just trying to clear everyone here. Right?
Yes,
We're,
she's
like I
clear or
said,
she's not clear?
we're-
See the cop just lied there. We're just trying to clear everybody here. The cop's not trying to do that. That's a load of horse shit. The cop is trying to incriminate someone. You don't search a vehicle to clear someone. You search a vehicle to incriminate someone. You're looking for evidence that they did something wrong. Jesus H. Christ.
We're like 90% sure, right?
Okay.
That extra 10% would help us out a lot.
Well,
They went down from 95 to 90. Does James Freeman comment on that?
I don't believe in that kind of stuff, so I know what my kid has done in that. So if I had anything, I'd say hell yeah. You know what I mean? 'Cause then, but yeah, I know for a fact that there's no weapons, there's no nothing in that vehicle, so there's no need to search it. I mean, that's what it is. I mean.
Well, I mean, regardless of whether there's weapons or anything else in that vehicle, the Fourth Amendment says the cops have to go piss up a rope unless they have a warrant or unless you consent or unless it's in plain view, yada, yada. But you get the idea.
If you guys want to take it further there, that's fine too. But
Yeah, that's your if that's your prerogative and that's how you want to do it, that's fine.
yeah, just
But for right
because
now,
I know what's what. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean,
And I think you do too.
even for your
But
daughter.
you want to take it a little further, and you know what I'm
we
saying?
just want to be sure. We just have to make sure.
Well, what ruled her out for you guys?
What's
Since
that?
she was ruled out, so what ruled her out?
Her story.
Basically,
She said she
yeah,
didn't
this
capture
whole
it.
thing's an involving investigation, right?
Yeah.
Like he had said, we're at like 90%. We just like that little push of assurance at the end.
See, the cop didn't say that we've ruled her out. It's an ongoing investigation.
And to make sure everything's clear.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And I know as a father, correct?
Yep.
I'd be, the thing is, you don't know exactly where she's been, right?
I know she was here. She visited her mom, so she was with her mom. Then she came here, and then she went to Sonic. I know exactly where she was at.
Okay. Yep.
You shouldn't say that. She was here, then she was with her mom, she went to Sonic, and then she came back. And then listen to the daughter.
I went to my ex-boyfriend's to drop off his shirt. We went to stay there for like 5 minutes.
I know.
Left.
Oh, now she went to her boyfriend's house. Shut the F up. Don't talk to the police, for frick's sake. Lord Almighty.
Came here. Sat here.
So yeah, there's no. I wouldn't worry about it.
Well, I mean, it's our job to worry about it, right? Because there's a huge event, and we have to investigate first. Otherwise, our ass is on the line. And I'm sure you understand.
Yeah, I get you.
So for right now, then, I guess the Jeep's not going anywhere.
The Jeep's not going anywhere?
Yep, just for right now. It's
So
not
we
going
can see
anywhere.
the chain?
Just for right now, the Jeep's not going anywhere. So until they get the warrant, the Jeep's not going anywhere.
No.
Once again, the officer says the Jeep's not going anywhere because the vehicle described leaving the scene of the crime was a Jeep. One of the ladies in the background says, "Is that even a Jeep?"
Okay, then we can go anywhere we want.
But right now,
And people can make mistakes about what is a Jeep and what is something that looks like a Jeep. I mean, that's something that could qualify reasonable suspicion. You could get reasonable suspicion off a similar vehicle. Was it a Honda or was it an Acura? Who knows? Who cares? Everything else matches. Let's go for it. Now, there's a difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Do they have probable cause? Well, I don't think so, but we'll find out what the judge says.
What do you mean?
No.
I can get my car and I can leave with my car.
Well-
Am I saying?
You can't leave in your car if your car is a crime scene or a potential crime scene.
You just told us to get a warrant.
Yeah, get a warrant. Yeah.
So
So you're gonna take time to get a warrant?
Yeah.
Okay, you better have some pretty good proof that this is the vehicle if you want to get a warrant.
We don't make that decision.
It's called proof to get a warrant. It's not just a hearsay.
Probable
Yeah, if they don't make that decision, a judge does, and it's probable cause. Yeah,
cause.
Hearsay. So,
Well, then let him get a warrant.
you know what? Yeah.
hearsay is an objection based in court. You can get probable cause off hearsay because technically what it is hearsay. The whole thing is hearsay. It's a cop going up to the judge and saying, "Oh, this person said X, this person said Y." All that's hearsay. All that's not admissible in a court of law, but that's what a judge is basing probable cause on.
We'll present the probable cause to the judge. The judge will either grant the warrant or deny the warrant. And we'll go from there. But in the meantime, it has to say where it's at.
Why can't you just let them search it?
Because it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Hey, we're kind of past that point.
You know? Yeah, we are past the point.
So one of the females in the background said, "Why don't you just
Well,
let him search?" To which the officer says, "Well, we're beyond that point now. You see, at this point, since they refused to..."
we're beyond that point. They've already asked for the warrant. So yeah, they're going to get a warrant. It's going to be clean. And probably one of the reasons why they want it to be clean with a warrant at this point is because there could be some confusion about whether or not it's coerced, whether or not they were forced into allowing the officers to search. So it's just going to be a cleaner record that if they come back with a warrant and they don't search it till they get the warrant, then the search was based on a warrant that issued on probable cause. And so the evidence, if there is any evidence, would be admissible. But I do notice that there's at least 3 cop cars I'm seeing now.
consent to a search, this pathetic officer is
I've only seen 2 cops and 3 cop cars, which means that third cop was probably this whole time working on getting a warrant.
attempting to retaliate against them by inconveniencing them as much as possible. By saying we're
Inconveniencing them as much as possible. It never really makes a lot of sense to me to try to read someone's mind. I mean, I'm not a fan of cops, but is he trying to retaliate? I mean, I don't know. Is he really trying to retaliate? I mean, it seems like you said get a warrant. He's like, okay, I'm going to get a warrant, or we're already getting a warrant, or I assume they're already getting a warrant because it's only 5 more minutes after about this point that they're allowed to drive away in the vehicle. So
past that point, he's saying that they wouldn't even search the Dodge Nitro that is not a Jeep, even if they had consent now. No, they're just going to hold the vehicle by threat of violence while they attempt to obtain a warrant. Everything done by the officers after this point is pure retaliation because...
Or it's purely them waiting for a warrant so that they have no so that no objections can be raised as to the quality of the evidence in court.
How dare you tell them no?
Good luck on that. So what if I take my car? What are you gonna do? You're not gonna let me in my car?
No, you're not.
Give me my
Seriously,
keys.
dude, stop.
Give me my keys. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Put your handcuffs.
You're gonna physically assault me for touching my vehicle.
I'm gonna detain you
Wait.
for interfering with the investigation.
Is this car?
It's fine. I'll drive.
It's a black Dodge Nitro
Okay.
with big chrome rims.
And who's this person saying this?
Witnesses to the crime.
And you got names?
Those are not names that we're gonna put out.
Just go.
If
Do
they're,
their job. Let them
have the right
leave.
to confront my person, right?
Look,
You don't have a right to confront witnesses until they're in court. And the courts will shield a lot of the information about witnesses from the defendant. So, I mean, like addresses and phone numbers, definitely, maybe even sometimes names, depending on the type of crime that has been committed. And they'll only release that information to, for example, the attorney. So no, you don't right now have a right to confront the witnesses against you.
I truly understand that not everyone has the courage to stand up, to fight, to defend their own life, liberty, and property. But if you are one of those people who does not have the courage, at least shut the fuck up and get out of the way of those who do.
What?
I got the right to confront the person saying something about somebody on me, right?
No one's saying anything on you.
The car is mine.
Okay.
So what are you saying? They're not saying something about me? It's me. It's my car.
You're not.
Well, you're not your car. Like, say, for example, I mean, it's unfortunate, but say, for example, someone steals your car and then they use your car in a drive-by shooting. It's your car. You're not a suspect. And the police will still get to impound the vehicle because it is a crime scene. And, you know, maybe at some point they'll turn it back to you. But like while they're checking it for spent shell casings and things like that, it's unfortunate that your car was stolen and used in a drive-by shooting. But I mean, that's just the way it is, man. They get to secure that evidence, that crime scene.
One with the car.
So get your warrant.
Shoot.
We're going to.
Try to.
Oh my God.
Have fun with that.
Wait.
There's the third cop.
She's fucking.
Just leave him.
I got this all recorded, so. Because you don't wear body cams, right? No accountability? Oh, well.
Go.
And you pull guns up in here? You got guns pulled in here? Yeah.
Well, if they came up on a vehicle that they were suspecting of having been involved in a shooting, yeah, they would probably approach with guns drawn. And it's unfortunate, and I don't really like it, but that is the way it is. They're not going to allow themselves to get shot.
This kid's funny here. Like fucking bullshit.
Show any kind of proof that my car was there. Any kind of proof.
They don't have to prove to you the car was there. They have to prove to the judge. But that looks a lot like a Jeep, doesn't it?
Just let them be.
Fuck that.
No. You want rather get shot? No.
The police never did obtain a warrant to search the Dodge Nitro that is not a Jeep, and they did not search the vehicle. About 5 or 10 minutes later, the police did tell them that they were free to go with their Dodge Nitro that is not a Jeep. Excellent job to the individual.
5 minutes later, they said free to go. So they tried to get the warrant. They weren't able to get the warrant. Congratulations. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but I mean, that's just unfortunately what happens. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like Terry versus Ohio. I don't like the reasonable suspicion standard. I don't like any sort of detentions or seizures that are not supported by a warrant. I don't like them. I don't think they're constitutional. But, you know, the state of the law is what it is. The Supreme Court has said what the Supreme Court has said, and we got to deal with it. So what are you going to do? Anyway, so we just learned a little bit there. James Freeman isn't entirely accurate in what he's saying. And don't talk to the police. Don't give them permission to search anything. And it's not really a seizure if they're just holding it until they can get a warrant. All right, here's the next one. Is it okay to defend against an unlawful attack from a cop? Now, different states have different rules on this. There is no Supreme Court ruling on it. A state can allow you to use self-defense against an unlawful arrest being made by a cop, or they cannot allow you to use self-defense against an unlawful arrest made by a cop. Different states have different rules. Consult with a local attorney before you attempt to do anything like shoot a cop for coming into your house, just period. And that attorney is probably going to tell you don't do it. because that's the smart thing. So let's see what James has to say here.
Stay out of people's house. Stay out of their homes. If you don't, you'll end up like these last two guys have.
You don't got no right to be in the house. Let us come inside.
You don't have a right to forcibly break into someone's home.
Stop coming to my
Forcibly break into someone's home. So we're probably going to see some Polk County deputies illegally forcing their way into a home.
house and asking for TT. He's not. No, who are you? You're on our fucking property.
To forcibly break into their home is a deadly decision.
I'm shutting
Forcibly break into their home. And these guys are illegally forcing their way into a home without a
my
warrant.
door. You have a warrant? I'm not getting him. TT, you got
I don't see them forcing their way into a home here. I see, hello puppy. I see two deputies standing there in a doorway. Their guns aren't out. They're just standing there in a doorway. I don't see them forcing themselves in anywhere. My question is, at the start of this vehicle, why is the door open? There's all these little rules that I have, and I wish I could make it simpler. The number one rule is don't talk to the police. Number two rule is don't consent to any searches or seizures. And number three is if the police knock on your door, don't open it. Say, come back with a warrant. Do you have a warrant? No? Come back with a warrant. Because the only reason why you would open your door would be to talk to the police. Don't talk to the police. The only reason why you would open your door would be to allow them to come in and search your home. Don't allow them to come in and search your home. Don't allow them in your home. Don't cooperate with the police. For the love of God, for all that is holy, don't cooperate with the police. Make it easy on yourself and your defense attorney for once in your miserable life, and don't cooperate with the police.
Why is he not getting off our property? Do you have a warrant to enter my property?
The father making a life or death decision, shot the intruder and killed him.
I shot him.
Those watching say they don't blame them.
No. I mean, they were trying to break in, right? No.
They would have done the same thing.
They were trying to break in. Whew.
Hi, is this James?
Yes.
Hey, this is Deputy Polk County Sheriff's Office.
You're going a little bald there, buddy.
How are you doing, Deputy?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Hey, you know what? Greg, does the homeowner have the right to defend against a cop that they know is a cop who's illegally and unlawfully trying to enter their property?
Yes.
Excellent.
We have cops that are a little.
If the cop is unlawfully and illegally, hold on, let's break that down a bit because that was loaded.
Yes.
Hey, this is Deputy Polk County Sheriff's Office.
How are you doing, Deputy?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Hey, you know what? Greg, does the homeowner have the right to defend against a cop that they know is a cop who's illegally and unlawfully trying to enter their property?
Illegally and unlawfully trying to enter their property. How do you know that a cop is illegally and unlawfully entering your property? I mean, James is full of certainty. Ask a lawyer, how would you know a cop is unlawfully and illegally entering your property? And we'll be like, well, you probably don't. You probably don't. 99.99% sure that you don't know. I mean, you might think you know, and the dumber you are, the more certain you're going to be, but you probably don't know. But I tell you what, if a cop is standing in your doorway and he's not doing anything aggressive, I would say that you will most likely get charged with something, at least charged with something, if not convicted.
Yes.
Excellent.
We have cops that are a little over aggressive, and it's usually the newer ones that they're gung ho and they want to get their guy and you have power to them. But yeah, it's still their duty to understand that people still have rights, and we can't just bust up in somebody's house.
Hey everybody, it's James Freeman. Today's video has already gone viral on channels such as Lackluster and Audit the Audit over 9 months ago. While both of these channels do a way better job than me of covering stories like this, there are some things that I thought were really important to add to this story. This story involves two cops in Polk County, Florida, to bully, intimidate, and eventually force their way into someone's home without a warrant. Now, while we've seen countless cops across the nation participate in this type of activity, the fact that this happened in Polk County, Florida stands out to me as more significant than when it happens in other locations. Reason being that Grady Judd, sheriff of Polk County, Florida, regularly brags about how residents of the area shoot and kill home intruders.
Stay out of people's house.
Home
Stay out of
intruders,
their home.
yeah. Stay out of their house.
You'll end up like these last two guys.
Stay out of their house.
You don't
Sure.
have a right.
So the question is, do the cops go into the house, right?
To forcibly break into their home.
Forcibly
Deadly-
break into their home?
deadly decision.
This sheriff regularly stresses that residents have a right to stop, by any means necessary, an illegal home intruder who intends to come in and do harm to you and or your family.
An illegal home intruder who intends to come in and do harm to you and your family. Now, I'm guessing that those two armed and armored cops, if they intended to do harm, could have pulled out tasers, guns, batons, pepper spray. I mean, they have weapons on them. They literally have weapons. They probably have knives on them too. And they didn't. They were just standing there in a doorway. Crazy. And that's whew, okay.
But you have the right to protect yourself in your home and to be free from home invaders, armed burglars, and certainly he was armed with a tire iron and making an attempt to come into the window. She stopped him. She's stopping permanently.
Making an attempt to come into a window. Now look at what these cops are doing. Just watch the cops.
The story starts out with two Polk County cops looking for someone that they do have a felony warrant for. The problem is that the person that they have a warrant for does not live at this residence, and the cops know that. In the video, the cops state that they will still continue to harass the residents of this home until they find the person that they're looking for, even though they know the person they're looking for doesn't live here. Note that it is 1:30 in the morning when this interaction happened.
Oh, right, I bet that. So I ain't gotta talk to you. Get away from my house. I'll build it.
Do you see where the cop's standing there? Watch the feet of the white cop on the left.
The person they're looking for doesn't live here.
Black
Note that it is
cop is
1:30 in the morning
further
when this
back.
interaction happened.
White cop, look where they're standing. They're not inside, they're outside.
I'm talking to you. Get away from my house. I'll build it. Fuck you. I got this not here. Fuck you. I don't care what you have one. I don't give a fuck. Let this man record this shit. He ain't got no get away from my door. Back up. You don't got no right to be in the house. Let's come inside. Yeah, we got no. Fuck you. We ain't got to do that. Because fuck you.
The cops are outside. The cops are outside and not attempting to come in.
Man, fuck all that. Fuck all that, bro. You ain't get no play here, bro. I promise you. You ain't get no fucking play. Fuck you. Call the judge. Whoever you got to call. Bitch, get Grady here. Get your supervisor here. Fuck it. Huh? You bring him down here. Bitch, I'll put everything in my pocket on it. Let's bet on it. Let's bet on it. Let's bet on it. I bet you ain't. Let's bet on it. And you ain't coming in the chat. I bet that. Put him in the bedroom. And don't tell him shit. Fuck him. This is his house. Come here. Fuck you. Come on. Oh, well, you ain't seen him come in. I guarantee it. You're in the black male here. You're the only.
So they think the person that they have the warrant for has been coming and going from this particular house. He's not there. They're probably waiting for a search warrant.
Black male here. You're right. You're the only one here.
I'm telling you, he's not coming to my fucking house and asking for TT. He's not here.
No, who are you? You're on our fucking property. Who are you? You're a fucking public servant. Bitch, you're here to serve us.
No, you're not
Fuck
coming.
We ain't
You're not
crazy
going
shit.
anywhere.
We ain't fuck that. And you need to know what's going. Get that shit on camera. Like that. This is recording. Fuck them. Make them. There ain't a black male here. Fuck you. And you ain't coming in, bitch. Fuck you. Coming in.
See, he's calling. He's making his calls, trying to get something going on there.
No. You're leaving. Good night.
Yeah, you are.
Well, we're gonna stay out. I guess. You.
This is your house, right?
All this could have been avoided if they didn't open the goddamn door. Don't open the door to the police.
Okay, you know everybody in the house.
I absolutely don't want my kids.
Don't talk to the police. Don't talk to the police. You know everybody's here? Oh. And then as soon as they see someone that you didn't mention, all of a sudden now you're a liar. Don't talk to the police. Don't tell them who's there. Don't talk to the police. Don't open the door. Don't consent to searches.
Now, you may not appreciate the way in which the residents are speaking to these cops, but keep in mind, this is not the first time that these cops have been here. Again, they regularly harass these residents looking for someone that they know doesn't live here. Clearly, the patience of some of these residents has grown thin.
You'd think after 6 times the residents would learn not to open the goddamn door for the police.
We're trying to get fucking generate revenue. That's what y'all do. And I was saying all day. We got all day. Let's run.
Well, let me ask you this. If he's wrong with it, let me ask you this. What precisely is it you're waiting for?
Waiting. See, even the guy who's upset that these cops are there is like, what are you waiting for? They're not trying to enter. They're standing there. They're not being aggressive. They're just standing there.
Hold on, there's nothing.
And they're not going to let you close the door, by the way.
There's nothing to wait on. It's going to change the outcome.
I'm not always supervisor. I want all the shit. I want the real.
Why does he keep getting let out?
Not this rookie cop. Get the fucking supervisor here. Like I said. Like I said. Get him the fuck here. Get Grady himself here.
So now the resident that seems most annoyed and upset with the fact that these cops keep harassing him says, get Grady himself here. What if Grady were here? What do you think he would recommend to these residents? At this point,
He'd probably recommend, because he's a cop, because Grady is a cop, Grady would recommend that you comply with the police and that you open the door and that you consent to the search and you consent to the seizure and you answer all their questions. That's what Grady would probably say, because Grady's a cop. Jesus, James, are you that dumb? What, you think Grady would be like, oh yeah, go ahead and shut the place? What a retard. Come on, James, you're smarter than that.
it's been determined that they don't have a warrant to enter the home, but the white officer is putting his foot in front of the door, preventing them from closing it. What should be done?
That's so weird that the door opens outward. I've never seen a home where the door opens outward. That's just weird.
Sheriff Grady?
Stay out of people's house. Stay out of their home.
They are at the house. Sheriff Grady wouldn't have a problem with them because they're outside of the house, James. If they had entered without a search warrant, there'd be a real problem. But guess what they didn't do?
She's stopping. She's stopping permanently.
Please, I mean, no more both of y'all. You're gonna make yourself look dumb. Is what you're about to do. Okay, I'm gonna probably play with your bitch ass too. I know how to
This is
do
the
all
fourth
that.
time. Fourth time.
I do, and you're on record, so act retarded. Okay, that's stupid, bitch. I want you to. I love it. Because you're gonna be wrong in the end. I'm gonna be right. That's all I can stand. I'm gonna be right in the end, homeboy. Can't do nothing about it. Dumbass.
Whew, that house is not being well maintained.
I know there's a black male here. Yeah, bitch, you. You're the only black male here. Motherfucker, retarded. I don't get it. Now I'm twice. Fuck that. Bitch, that's arrested at this point.
Meth is a hell of a drug.
Fuck you. You don't gotta do it. I'm shut the door again. I should have never opened it again. That's how you do that. You leave the bitch ass right after knocking. Their handful.
I should have never opened it. Oh, you're figuring that out now. Woo!
Yeah, white male, uncooperative, ain't figuring none of that shit. Ain't a criminal. Don't give a two fucks what y'all got going on. None of that, buddy. Get your supervisor, please. Somebody has more sense than both of y'all. We're trying to deal with stupidity.
Oh, maybe they're out in the garage. Maybe the garage door was open. They walked up to the... Interesting. If they are in the garage, then that changes the equation a little bit.
Especially some fucking Lee Humphrey. What the fuck? Where's Turner? Fuck, get supervisor here. I'd rather deal with fucking him. That's sad. No, times one. Supervisor. I don't want to talk to y'all. Get the supervisor here. When y'all look down, I want to know what's going to happen. When y'all do it, if you do want to come in and you look down, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah, right.
What are you going to do about that?
What are you waiting on? What are you doing?
That's what I want to know.
Hold on, I can't hear. What is it you think you're doing right now? What are you waiting on?
No, it looks like a porch. It looks like there's a post behind the
And what
white
do you think
top.
he did? I bet on it, please. If you're wrong, what would you really put on it then? If you're wrong,
First lights on, dude.
Go get a fucking warrant
For the black guy that's in here.
And there it is. The resident attempts to close the door to his home, and the officer forcibly opens it.
Go get a fucking warrant.
The officer prevents it from being closed. He doesn't forcibly open it because the officer's standing there, and the officer doesn't have to move because officers are assholes. Now, I don't agree with the whole assault on an officer thing, like with the gadfly bumping into the back of the cop, and that's assault. And the way it works is assault, isn't, or battery, isn't just I'm going to say assault, but by assault I mean like the New York criminal definition of assault, where assault means actually like either threatening to harm someone or touch them offensively, or actually harming them or touching them offensively. Like simple battery in California, or your kind of basic criminal assault, is not just a harmful touching, it's a harmful or offensive touching. And that opens the door to a lot of stuff. And for normal people, it's fine. There's no real reason why you should be touching normal people. And normal people don't have the power to arrest. And, if you bump in the back of a normal person and a cop sees it, and that person says, "Hey, he just bumped into me. I find that offensive." The cops can be like, "Dude, I'm not going to arrest over that." Because the cop knows that that's not really the kind of offensive touching that the statute is written to protect against. But because the cop has the power to arrest, the cop will arrest you if you bump into him and say, it's offensive touching. Oh. And so I don't think that a cop should have the power to arrest for the offensive touching of a cop. I mean, maybe spitting on a cop, but not like bumping into him or attempting to close a door while the cop is there and the cop has the ability and freedom to move out of the way. But unfortunately, the way our laws are currently written, the cops do have that power to be assholes, and they frequently make use of it. Like they will open your car door and they will stand in it to prevent you from being able to close your car door. And then if you try to drive away, they will say they're in fear of their lives and they will jump into the car and then shoot you for driving away because you could have theoretically driven over them, and they're not, capable of stepping back out of harm's way. Instead, they have to offensively shoot you or something for it. So it's pretty disgusting and pretty terrible, but you can't close the door on a cop because the cop will be like, "He assaulted me," and he'll arrest you for it. And then what are you going to do? I mean, you might not get charged with anything because the DA will look at it and be like, I don't think I could actually win on that in court. But did he have probable cause? Well, he was offended, right? I was offended, and it's against the law to touch someone in an offensive way. So quadrat demonstratum there, boys.
For the black guy that's in here.
You out the way. You're stopping
Film that. Why are you holding? I'm shutting my door. Do you have a warrant? I'm not gonna hit him.
Get out of the way. Why is he not getting off our property?
Do you have a warrant to enter my property?
Looking for somebody with a felony?
Do you have a warrant to enter my property? Do you have a warrant to enter my property? What are you doing? Do you have a warrant to enter my property?
No, they don't. Obviously. If he's not here, you guys shouldn't have a problem with
It doesn't matter. I still have a right. Right? Do I have my fucking right to know? So do you have a warrant?
But if he's not here,
All right. The way warrants work, you knock on doors with warrants. You're holding my door open with no warrant. Okay, I'm gonna shut it. We'll see you guys in a little bit and figure this out. All right?
move out of the way.
Oh, hey.
Hey, get on film. Get on film. They're flipping up.
And he just gave them, quote, probable cause, end quote, to arrest him. And now they can go in and search.
The person recording stops recording in order to use her phone to dial 911. As a result, she was arrested for misuse of emergency hotline. The unlawful arrest was used as a pretext to enter the home where the suspect they were looking for was not found because he was not there, as the residents had already explained. All of the charges against the residents were later.
It's not. I agree. This is a needle in a haystack shot by the cops. They want to get in there. They want to find out if the guy's in there, and it doesn't hurt the cops to look. I mean, they're getting paid by the hour to do this. So yeah, they're assholes, and it was a long shot for him. But theoretically, the guy could have been there. And just because he wasn't there doesn't mean the guy couldn't have been there. If the cops keep coming back to the same house 6 times in a row, they're probably doing it because their suspect keeps getting seen here at this house, and they just haven't been able to show up when the suspect was there.
Dropped. But nothing was done to the cops that he illegally entered a home and violently attacked multiple residents.
Well, they entered after the arrest to secure, right? They got to go in there to secure the property since they're arresting the homeowners. It's all a scam. It's all so tiresome. But yeah, that's the state of the law. That's the state of the law.
I contacted Polk County Sheriff's Department to find out.
It's part of the community caretaking function. Well, now that we've arrested everybody who lives here on bullshit kind of charges, now we get to go in and make sure that everything is secured so that nothing gets stolen while the homeowners are gone.
Find out if Sheriff Judd's recommendation of defending against violent attackers applied to police also. Due to the fact that this conversation was over 20 minutes long, I am...
Violent attackers. They were standing there in the doorway. They were standing there in the doorway until the dude tried to close the door on them in one of the dumbest moves ever. It's a smart move to not open the door. It's a dumb move to try to close the door on a cop. But the cops weren't being violent. They were standing there.
Cutting parts out to edit it down for time. But I will also upload on its own an uncut version of this entire phone call so that you can see that the edits don't change the context of the conversation.
Hi, is this James?
Yes.
Hey, this is Deputy with the Polk County Sheriff's Office.
How are you doing, Deputy?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Hey, you know what? Great. I'm moving out to the area. My wife bought us some property out there. Is the weather nice right now?
I say, welcome to the sun.
My wife bought us some property out there.
Sunshine State as it is pouring down rain.
What I was wondering about, though, and I had called, and I think I talked to a dispatcher, didn't want to waste her time. I'm sure they got emergencies coming in. It is legal to use deadly force against someone who's threatening you on your property in Florida. Is that right?
So here is the technicalities.
Threatening you. Threatening you.
Yes, you can defend yourself, your family, your property. It has to be a viable threat.
Okay.
A viable threat. And what they mean is there has to be you have to be in fear, there's probably going to be an objective and a subjective requirement that you actually believe that you are in danger of being harmed. You have to subjectively believe that that person is going to cause you harm. And most likely a reasonable person would have to believe that you were in reasonable fear of being harmed.
So if somebody's standing on the edge of your grass telling you that they're going to kick your ass, if you can walk back inside, then obviously we suggest you do that because nobody wants to take a life.
Yeah.
If they're not giving you the option, you do what you have to do.
Oh, Warren. Okay, I'm gonna shut it. We'll see you guys in a little bit and we'll figure this out, all right?
Move out of the way.
So she gave an example. She gave an example of somebody on your lawn saying, I'm going to kick your ass. Go inside. If you're able to go inside, obviously they're not going to kick your ass, right? If you're actually able to walk away and go inside, then it's not a credible threat. It's not a real threat because, or at least you don't have I don't know. Maybe you do. It all depends. But she's giving you good advice. If you can walk inside, walk inside. But in this particular case, the cops aren't coming into the house. And nothing would have prevented all these guys from just simply going back into bedrooms and shutting doors. Cops wouldn't be able to come in because they don't have a search warrant and they don't have permission. And you don't have to talk to the cops because you're in a bedroom behind a door, right? And no one would get arrested, and the cops would stand there waiting until either they got their warrant or they didn't, and problem solved.
If you can walk back inside, then obviously we suggest you do that because nobody wants to take a life.
Yeah.
If they're not giving you the option, you do what you have to do.
Okay, that sounds...
If they're not giving you the option. So the thought experiment was someone standing at the edge of your grass saying they're going to kick your ass. And if you try to walk in and they don't let you, i.e. they actually cross your grass and come get you and physically prevent you from going into your house, then yeah, you do what you got to do.
Sounds perfectly reasonable, and I guess I'd assume that any case could go before a jury, so... This only applies to civilians, though, right? You can only defend yourself against a civilian who's unlawfully entering your property, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so you wouldn't be able to defend yourself against military personnel that are unlawfully entering your property, is that right?
You're going to start getting into some sketchy territory in that one.
Okay.
Because if you would have to seriously be able to prove that they were unlawfully entering your home.
Okay, all right.
Because the federal government plays by a whole other set of rules. Like when we...
And military or police, you're going to have to prove, you really are, you're going to have to be able to prove that they're unlawfully there. The default position is that the cop is right and you're wrong. So you're going to get charged. Most likely you're going to get charged. Most likely you're going to have to spend money. You're going to be spending money on bail. You're going to be spending money on a defense attorney. You're going to be losing days of work. I mean, you really ought to think about it. You really ought to think about it. I always suggest you fight these battles in court rather than trying to fight them on the street. Because Another thing is you might not live to see court. If you shoot a cop, I mean, they will show up. More cops will show up with more guns, and it's going to get ugly. And I don't recommend you start anything like that. Fight them in court, not in your house.
You do a search warrant, we have to provide you with that search warrant.
Okay. Say I got a couple of guys at my front door. You know how many videos I've seen on YouTube recently of cops and people impersonating police officers and pulling people over? And, okay. So this is why I'm asking. Say I got 2 deputies at my front door. They don't have a warrant. They're saying that they want to come in and look for somebody. Again, they don't have a warrant. They're refusing to leave. They're armed. I don't know if they're really deputies or not. Clearly, a deputy wouldn't try to.
These guys actually had a warrant. They said they had a felony warrant for someone. They don't have a. So the way a felony arrest warrant works, and I'm assuming it works the same way in Florida, is you can enter the suspect's home. The person who the warrant was issued against, you could enter their home. That the warrant is good for there. But if they're like a guest at someone else's home, then you would need to basically surround the building or something and get a warrant for that specific house. But they do have a warrant. They just don't have a warrant for the specific house.
To enter the house without a warrant, right?
Correct.
This is a situation where I should probably.
They're not trying to enter the house without a warrant. Well, I guess technically they are. They're trying to get permission first. If failing getting permission, then they're probably already working. Someone's probably already working on getting a warrant for them to enter.
Probably do what I need to do to remove these guys from my property by any means necessary, right?
Well,
Do what I got to do to remove these guys from my property by any means necessary. That's a lot of absolutes there, buddy.
and this is pretty much one of the ways you can tell. Like, I've been doing this for a hot minute. So have I been able to talk my way into houses before? Yes, I certainly have. Have I been able to talk my way into every house? No, I cannot. And without a search warrant, I can come to the door and I can.
He actually was giving good advice there. See if I
Able to
can't
talk
get
my
on
way
his
into
feet.
houses before? Yes.
She's talking about obtaining voluntary consent from a homeowner. Never give the cops consent to search anything. It doesn't matter if you're innocent or not. That is good advice from Mr. Freeman.
I certainly have. Have I been able to talk my way into every house? No, I cannot. And without a search warrant, I can come to the door and I can talk to you. You can even slam the door in my...
I can come to the door and I can talk to you. And you can slam the door in my face, except this door opens outward because this is in apparently a meth house. So...
face. You can even slam the door in my face. You can even slam the door in my face.
Yeah, but you can't slam the door through her face. So if it's a normal door and it opens inwards, or let's say you have a storm door in place and you haven't opened the storm door, you've just opened your real door, your front door, so the cop can't put their foot in to stop it from shutting. You can shut the door, but again, it's always better to not open the door in the first place, and you can't close the door through a cop.
That doesn't mean I have to leave.
Okay.
Because if I believe that somebody I'm looking for is in that house, then we're going to lock that house down.
Okay.
But in order for us to go in that house, we...
And see, these cops are locking that house down, probably while they're waiting for that warrant. By keeping that door open, by keeping an eye on what everybody's doing, they're locking that house down.
have to have a search warrant. So pretty much we're just going to lock your house down until either A, we get a search warrant approved, or A, it gets denied and we leave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, and fair enough. I mean, if it's really, sheriff deputies and they're really looking for someone, of course, I'm not the kind of person who wants to hinder that. But again, I've seen so many videos recently of people impersonating police officers that it's like I would just assume if I got two guys at my door saying they want to come in and saying that they don't have a warrant, I'm going to assume they're not police officers, right? Because a cop would know what to do and they would know, hey, we better back off, we better get out of here because we don't have a warrant, right?
They're not trying to come in the door, though, James.
Right, and at least
we have cops that are a little over aggressive, and it's usually the newer ones that they're gung ho and they want to get their guy, and you have power to them. But yeah, it's still their duty to understand that people still have rights, and we can't just bust up in somebody's house.
Dangerous situation.
They're not busting open someone's house. They're standing outside the door.
I wish that all cops would just obey the law because, God forbid, someone has to actually shoot a cop because they think it's someone impersonating a cop because the cop's so ignorant they're trying to get in a house without a warrant, right? I'm trying to understand.
They're not trying to get in the house without a warrant. I guess technically they may be trying to get consent, but they're not trying to get in the house.
These situations, because again, it would be nice if we all understood and had a common understanding of what we should and shouldn't be doing to each other. And
well, that would be a little too much to ask for.
Yeah. So
Common sense is not very common.
Right. So let's say worst case scenario. We've got a couple of cops. They're real cops. They're trying.
I've noticed that poor James Freeman here has the sniffles or something. He keeps wiping his nose.
Get into somebody's house without a warrant, no fresh pursuit. It's not legal. It's not lawful, and they're trying to force their way into a house in Florida. Does the homeowner have the right to defend against a cop that they know is a cop who's illegally and unlawfully trying to enter their property?
Illegally and unlawfully. Again, try to prove it, buddy.
Yes.
Excellent. So it is perfectly legal to defend against a known police officer. You know he's a cop and he's illegally breaking into your house.
Illegally breaking into your house. I mean, probably. Just because he's a cop doesn't mean that he can break into your house. But I mean, there's so many depends in that particular circumstance. I wouldn't want anybody to try to do that because maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but I wouldn't recommend trying.
You better be able to prove it, though.
Excellent. I want to make it perfectly clear that I did not make
She's right. You better be able to prove it.
this video to encourage or glorify people harming other people. I think that most of us can agree that those of us who do not have badges cannot and should not ever illegally enter someone else's home in an attempt to cause them harm. I think that most of us would also agree that if someone without a badge illegally entered our home in an attempt to cause us harm, that we would have the right to defend ourselves. But it's become so taboo to talk about defending against a violent attacker if that violent attacker has a badge and is
But they weren't being violent, James. That's what you're missing here. They weren't being violent. They were standing outside the door, preventing it from closing, yeah, but they weren't being violent unless you really stretch the definition of violence to the point where it's meaningless. I mean, right now my dog is violently laying on a rug in front of the screen door. You know, I'm violently sitting in a chair talking into a microphone. You know, violence has a meaning, and the common understanding of what most people think of violence is not two cops standing outside a door without weapons out, talking. You might not like them there, but they're not being violent, James.
acting under the color of law. If we're going to live in a civilized society, we're going to have mutual respect for one another, where we all recognize that nobody has special magical powers or rights to initiate force and violence against another unjustly, and that if someone is to
See, no one has the right to initiate force against another unjustly. That's a fair statement of the law. Cops don't have the right to initiate force against someone unjustly. But the question is, when is it just? I mean, that's the whole point of courts, is figuring out when it is and isn't just.
initiate violence against another, that they don't have the right to divorce the consequences from their actions. Even the system of the attackers in this video alleges to agree that just because you have a badge doesn't mean you can just force your way into people's property. That's precisely why there's a system by which they can show
They didn't force their way in, well, I guess until they had the opportunity to arrest the homeowners. But they didn't force their way in. And had the homeowners not taken any actions against the police, i.e. trying to shut a door through them. And again, I'm not saying that what the guy did should be a crime. I'm not saying that he should be arrested for trying to close the door on the cops. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that it did give enough to the cop that he could probably make that arrest and probably not suffer any consequences for making that arrest. Because the cop was there, and in order for that door to be shut, it would have to hit the cop. And that's a harmful or offensive touching. I mean, it's wrong, but it is.
Probable cause to get a warrant to legally and lawfully enter a property. But what their system claims to do and what it actually does are two completely different things.
And they were probably waiting on a warrant. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, that's their end game. They try to get in by talking, but they have people in the background working to try to get warrants in the meantime.
Officers clearly violated their own rules and laws to illegally enter the property of innocent people without a warrant.
They didn't illegally enter it. You can't retcon what they did. Anyway, I've had enough listening to James Freeman lie about what we just saw. We just saw two cops standing outside a door. This cop is standing outside a door. He's not being offensive. He's not doing anything mean. He's standing outside the door. The other cop is standing outside a door. They're not even shining flashlights in people's faces. They're just standing there. They're not pulling weapons. They let this guy walk through with his dog. He's just standing there. There's no violence, James. Not until they have probable cause to make the arrest. Anyway, I beat this horse to death. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.